have so many attendees and to share such a cool project. Today, we are very lucky to have two visionaries behind the Elephant Park project with us. That's Angela Brennan from Lendlease and Stephen Platts from the London Borough of Southwark. I think I nailed that pronunciation. And my name is Kristen Zupancic. You may have seen my face before. I'm from, I run Plot Twist Placemaking, based out of Amsterdam. And I'm a member of the Place-Led Development Working Group. And my co-host today is Laura. Hey, Laura, do you want to introduce yourself for those of you who don't know you yet?
Sure. Thank you, Kristen, for the introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm really excited as well to have this conversation today. My name is Laura Pellegrinelli, and I've had the privilege of working with Lendlease for several years, both in the UK and Italy. And during my time in London, I was part of the team shaping the development of Elephant Park, focusing on placemaking and public realm strategies. And seeing this vision come to life over the years has been truly inspiring. And Kristen, I'm delighted to discuss its journey with the team today.
We're going to get right into it very soon. And I also just want to give a shout out to Placemaking Europe for supporting us in this event and for spreading the word and making this happen. So before we get into it, I'll just give a bit of an overview of what to expect within the next hour or so. So I'll just go over some house rules, share a bit more about the Place-Led Development Working Group. We hear about Elephant Park, and afterwards we're going to close off the recording for an audience Q&A and leave the floor open for any closing words or special announcements from our community. So just a heads up again, this video or this event will be recorded. So if you don't want your face to be seen, just feel free to shut off your camera. Please stay muted if you're not speaking during the presentation, just to prevent any background noise. And throughout the event, feel free again to use the chat box to write any questions you have as they come up. And we're going to get to those questions at the end of the session. So we are going to be able to share this video recording just in a few days after. So keep your eyes peeled for that as a follow-up to this event. But I just wanted to also set the stage on the topic because we were talking about place-led development. And if you're unfamiliar with this, place-led development sits at the intersection of placemaking, community development, and area development. It's basically the purpose of it is to make impact long lasting. So basically by mixing those placemaking tactics with long-term real estate development and planning, that's when we all come together to really create a stronger community from the beginning. So also you might have seen this very powerful trifecta before, combining hardware, software, and orgware into place-led developments to really strengthen and create, a very, I would say, like leveled and inclusive and I would say like well-working, I guess you can say, project. So I'm excited also today to hear about the hardware, the software, and the orgware that was utilized in the making of Elephant Park as well. As I mentioned at the beginning of this call, this is the first deep dive of 2025. This is our 10th session. As you can see, we love highlighting projects from all around the world. So if you have also a cool project that you think our placemaking community would love to hear more about, please let us know and we can try to highlight that in one of our upcoming series. The Place-Led Development Group has also done multiple projects. So in addition to facilitating the deep dive series, we have also worked on this brochure about place-led development, surprise, surprise, but specifically for real estate developers so that they can have a better understanding of the impact and what's involved in all the benefits of place-led development. And to top it off, we also have our own website, which you can find linked below and found via the Placemaking Europe website. So there's also a lot of great resources as well. Now I'm excited to pass the floor on to Laura to share more about Elephant Park and give it an introduction and to welcome our speakers. So Laura, on to you.
Sure. First of all, I'd like to start by expressing my gratitude to the Elephant Park team for joining us today. It's truly a pleasure to have this opportunity to speak with you, Angela and Stephen. Elephant Park has evolved over the years through the contributions of many professionals, each leaving their mark on the project's success. And today I'm excited to dive into key aspects of this regeneration story with you. Angela and Stephen, do you want to introduce yourself first?
Hi everybody, I'm Stephen Platts. I'm Director of Planning and Growth at Southwark Council. I've been here 30 years and I started working on Elephant and Castle in 1998.
Well, I can't top that. I'm Angela Brennan, so I am the Development Management Executive Director for Lendlease and have been fortunate to work on Elephant nowhere near as long as Steve, but for probably about the last 6 years I've been involved in various capacities. And as we were saying earlier, I think this is one topic that Steve and I have lots of things to say about, and we're both very, very proud, obviously, of what's been achieved to date so far.
So thank you. So let's dive into the conversation now. First question. Over the years, how has the vision for Elephant Park evolved? What key factors have influenced its transformation from concept to reality? So, Angela, could you share insights on community engagement, design evolution, and execution? And Steve, from your perspective, how does this align with Southwark's broader vision for Elephant and Castle?
Angela, do you want to go first?
In his view, in terms of Southwark's vision, very much so, because I think from our perspective, that very much set the foundation for what Elephant Park's vision was as a place and a location in itself, but also how that's evolved over the years in terms of that partnership between Southwark Council and ourselves. So Steve, did you want to maybe start with maybe your vision from a council's perspective, and then I can overlay how we've responded to that in partnership, especially as you say, Laura, around the community side of things, design and execution?
Absolutely, Angela. So really the foundation for Elephant Park is strong adopted formal policy, planning policy. So we adopted a supplementary planning document in about 2006, which actually set out our vision for Elephant Park and the wider Elephant and Castle area. In relation to Elephant Park, basically that provided a grid for the various building blocks and development plots. It provided indications of where we wanted the public open space, the town square, for example, and the network of routes and roads running through the new development. At the heart of it was basically knitting back into the wide urban fabric what was once a fortress of a council estate built in the 1960s, which was impenetrable. So a key element of our policy document, which was followed through the master plan and the outline plan application, was reconnecting the historic road network. So the area becomes permeable again and we get greater activity at the ground plane. And also, I suppose, part of that vision as well was also providing a substantially increased mix in uses and also in housing tenure. At that time, 95% of housing in Elephant and Castle and Elephant Park was social rented housing. It was also standard, and part of the philosophy behind Elephant and Castle and Elephant Park was to readdress imbalances in the community and also in uses in the area to create a successful place. Prior to that, Elephant and Castle has huge issues of crime, deprivation, health outputs, dominated by traffic, air quality issues, etc., etc. I think one of the interesting things which sort of evolved through Elephant Park was the love of the mature trees in Elephant Park, and I think that's one of the differences you'll see from our planning policy document to the eventual master plan, which Lendlease delivered and brought forward, is that the changes were really driven by the retention and the strategy by Lendlease, to be fair, to retain as many mature trees as possible. And really that's given the new development a maturity, I think, which is quite difficult to achieve from a blank site. Angela, do you want to say anything else?
Angela, can you hear us?
Oh yes, I can hear you now. Sorry.
All right.
I was like, oh my God, the internet's starting to go. Sorry. I did hear 99% of what you said, Steve, so all good.
All right, okay. Trees, Angela. we should have cut them all down, shouldn't we?
I think to be fair, that is always the prime example that we give, I think, is with regards to the trees, and back to your point, Laura, around the community engagement side. You know, Southwark did have a very clear vision for what they wanted the outcome to be, which, as Steve was saying, is how do you start to stitch what is a really central part of not just Elephant and Castle, but London back into the wider community. And it's a community that existed, that had a lot of depth, it had a lot of strength within that community, albeit, as Steve said, you know, generally there was a lot of deprivation, there was a lot of crime and the like, and it, from an outsider's view, might not have been the most optimal place to live or to visit. But for the people who did live here, and it was their home or it was their place of work, they're very connected, they're very grounded, and there is a really strong community that obviously isn't always necessarily open to change, but it was important from the outset that we brought them along the journey and really engaged with them along the way. And that was something that we did quite extensively, not just in advance of submitting the application to try to tick all the boxes from both a Southwark perspective, but also a community perspective, but actually that ongoing engagement throughout the duration of the master plan. You know, we were appointed and selected as the development partner for Southwark Council in 2007. We signed the regeneration agreement in 2010. And we started consultation around that time in advance of submitting the application for planning back in 2012. And then we started demolition and construction in 2013, and that's been ongoing since that point. And so we're, as of today, probably about 18 months out from finishing the delivery of the master plan. But integral to all of that has been that community engagement, that need and you know, almost requirement to listen, and the obligation that we have as short-term, relatively short-term custodians of the place, to really listen, to be able to respond both from a design, from an evolution perspective and an execution side of things, to ensure that when we get to the end point, we step away and we're able to hand back a place that the residents who were here before, but also the newer residents, are quite proud of. You know, and I think over that period of time, having a partner such as Southwark Council with a very strong vision and a very committed vision, even when there is potentially some animosity and some angst against what is happening and the change that is occurring, has been fundamental in ensuring progress. But also, I think the way in which the master plan has evolved in response to things like the way in which people live these days post-COVID, the way in which cities are operating, the expectations that people have in terms of the places that they live and work and play within, you kind of continue to evolve over time in terms of really thinking through how do different things respond, how does the place evolve, and as the broader place evolves, as obviously, you know, that kind of connects into Elephant Park, how we continue to respond to that so that actually the end state is very much one whole, not a whole load of individual pieces that may have had some type of investment in them.
Good. Thank you very much, both. And Steve, looking at this regeneration effort from Southwark Council's perspective, what were the biggest challenges you faced? How did you overcome them? And what key lessons emerged?
Okay, I think one of the biggest challenges that we faced was basically confidence that the Elephant Castle could become a very different place to what it was when we started on this journey. It had a very poor reputation for a whole host of reasons. And I suppose the industry and investors lacked confidence that we could actually deliver on our vision. And I think it took a partner like Lendlease to share our vision and have the confidence to actually see what could actually be achieved and how transformative it would actually be for the area, and transform the area for not just for the new residents living in Elephant Park, but really be transformative across the wider neighbourhood as more jobs come into the area, more investment comes into the area, and new facilities are brought online, both within Elephant Park but within the broader Elephant and Castle regeneration area. So I think a lot of the time this project's been on a very rocky road for a very long time, and at one time it was known in London as a project which was never going to be delivered and was impossible for a host of reasons. And I'm glad to say that that wasn't the case. We did manage to deliver something, and there was the confidence there to invest heavily in the project and deliver something which is truly transformative and of the highest quality and one of the best examples of urban regeneration. Lessons learned, I think, obviously part of the contentious issue around Elephant Park was obviously it's on the site of former social rented council housing, the Haygate estate. And that's where, if you like, the opposition for the project came from. And the fundamental, I suppose, issue was that there's less affordable social rented housing on Elephant Park than what was demolished to make way for Elephant Park. Our strategy was never to replace the social rented housing on Elephant Park, to replace it within the broader neighbourhood, which we have achieved. So within the broader Elephant and Castle area, there is more social rented housing now than there was when we started the project and demolished the Haygate estate. I think what we would do different now is probably phase it differently. So when we did Elephant Park, effectively demolished the whole area, cleared the whole site in one go, and started from a cleared site. I think we would probably phase it. I think we would ideally, Angela, I think we both wanted more commercial floor space in there and more mix of uses. We tried, didn't we, Angela? But the market turned against us. So so it is predominantly residential and retail, and we would have liked a significant commercial element, but sometimes you just have to be practical and realistic. The reason why we wanted a commercial element was to support a daytime economy and support the food and beverage offer during the daytime. It's very difficult for those traders to just trade on an even economy, but unfortunately we didn't achieve that. But next time I think we'd certainly try to create a broader mix of uses within the project.
And so linked to this question, Angela, I mean, when Stephen talked about the mixed use, what strategies have you implemented to ensure so that Elephant Park is more than just a residential development? So how have you shaped it into a true destination that attracts and engages the wider community?
I think to Steve's point, in terms of the approach that was taken, where the Haygate estate was demolished as a whole, and all of a sudden you have this completely empty site, that obviously we phased the delivery of what we were bringing forward. But the entirety of the site was empty. And so it was quite a dramatic change. And we knew it was obviously going to be quite a number of years before it really started to feel like a neighbourhood again. So from the outset, there was very much a vision around the role of meanwhile use. And the image on the screen is what we called artworks. And it was the traditional kind of shipping container community that was created. But it was really important for something like that to really set the tone in terms of where we were heading for Elephant Park in the long term, what the vision for the future looked like. And these kind of meanwhile use cabins, containers and the like, gave local residents and local business operators a chance to try their business, to have a safe space to fail, where their house wasn't on the line, that they had a dream, they had a vision, and could it actually become a reality at Elephant Park? And that really linked quite closely into the strategy that we had around the retail, where we wanted something different than a standard high street with all the standard high street. We didn't want a McDonald's. We didn't want a Costa Coffee. We didn't want any of those standard high street names. back to the point earlier around the strength of the community, we wanted the retail to be very reflective of the local community, for there to be a sense of personality, for people to walk in and know that they're going to see Laura, who operates X, Y, and Z restaurant, and they know her and she knows them. And that was a really important part of how we had this vision and how we really kind of set ourselves up to move forward. And things like the meanwhile use was a really key part of that. Quite a few of those retailers have then moved across and taken permanent retail space. So that was always key for us. I think the other thing that's been really fundamental is the public realm and those spaces and places between the buildings, where obviously the buildings themselves create that kind of vertical neighbourhood for people and residents to reside and come home to. But to Steve's point around the vision being, how do we connect back into the wider community as such, having the public spaces be places that gave permission for people to enter, that didn't feel as though you had to be a resident to start to enjoy the benefits of what Elephant Park has to offer. And really taking the time to invest and think through how those spaces between the buildings all start to connect together, to really give a sense of calm, of reprieve from zone one, and 2 steps outside the development and there's a load of sirens and traffic and noise and smog and all of that goes with it. But having that opportunity to come within and feel as though you've got your own sense of calm and place starts to give it a different dimension and enables the place to be very relevant to various different groups, from families to, we've got the whole estate has been certified as dementia friendly. So having quiet places for people who have various illnesses or various disabilities, but how do we make it as inclusive as possible, that enable people to give a purpose to it, but also create their own reason for being and their own justification as to why it's a destination for themselves.
Thank you, Angela. And, I completely agree with your words and your vision. And this question is for both of you. Beyond commercial metrics, how do you measure the success of this project? What steps are being taken to ensure that Elephant Park remains, as you said, Angela, an inclusive, vibrant, and sustainable place in the long run?
Oh, that's a tricky one.
You can go first.
Thank you, Angela.
It's a good question.
I mean, once we get to, if you like, project completion, we will do some formal research in terms of sort of your nationally sort of recognised indices and metrics around, if you like, your usual indices, if you like, to identify health outcomes, educational outcomes, income levels, all this sort of stuff. But I think there's something much more. I mean, I was at Elephant Park last night, for example, and it was a spring evening, and the sun was out in London, surprisingly, and it was absolutely packed full of people. Some people walking their dogs, just some people playing, some people sat on the grass, some people in the bars and restaurants sat out, and it had a real buzz and a real feel to it. And I think that's for me that is a successful place, and it is a combination of things, as Angela said. It is the local community. It is people from outside the project coming in and using facilities and enjoying the green spaces. It is about good design, high quality finishes, high quality planting, and the place feels like it has soul. I don't know how you measure that. I've been to other places. I don't know if you've been to the former Olympic Park out of Stratford, and for me that doesn't have that. And I don't know if you could probably can it and sell it. You could be able to sell it, I think, for a lot of money. But for me, it is about that. It feels a genuine part of London. It is attractive and attracts people from all walks of life, existing residents in the neighbourhood and new residents in the area. In terms of the long-term stewardship, particularly the public realm, I think is really important. It is really disappointing in my job when I go back to projects 3 years after practical completion and the public realm and the planting and the landscaping look fantastic on practical completion. You go back 3 years later, it's all died and nobody's maintains it. Breaks my heart. So yeah, so I think you can do formal sort of research around the success of a project on project close, which we will do. But for me, the real success is that just going down and experiencing it and watching people experience it and people enjoy it, and it really is a joy to see.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I would tend to agree with all of that. I mean, we undertook some social value return on investment research, and we essentially went through and measured from 2016 through until 2021, so over that 5-year period, with the intention, to Steve's point, that we'll then do from 2021 through to 2026 when we finish. But over that 5-year period, what social value has been generated by the project over and above our planning commitments, so things like our Section 106 obligations and the employment that we have to generate under the 106. So all of those things that have been designed to be a mitigant and to really reap the public benefit, step them to the side, but what else has been generated as such? And through going through all of that, what that showed is that actually over that 5-year period, we generated £36 million worth of social value. So essentially £6 for every £1 invested. And that gets measured through a lot of those key metrics that Steve was talking about. So the impact on local people being employed, and that therefore reduces, for example, their propensity to turn to crime. It gives them the opportunity to have a better roof over their head, to be able to feed themselves, which takes pressure off the health system. All of those kind of incidental benefits that start to come as a direct result of the opportunities that regeneration on this scale presents, all kind of came together. So as I said, we've kind of done a little bit so far in terms of measuring that, and we will do that again. But I think Steve's right. I think the number of different tours and presentations that both of us give to other developers within London, from Australia, we've done some for some Dutch visitors, from some American visitors, so from Israeli visitors, all coming to see Elephant Park, but interestingly, all looking at it through different lenses. There's some come to talk about the integration of affordable housing and social housing mixed with the open market tenures and how that works from a dynamic perspective. And to be fair, you can walk around the development and good luck finding which one is which apartment, which is fantastic. To people coming to really wanting to understand the place and the public realm, others with an interest in the retail side of things. But I think for us, the really big piece is we are the custodians of this place for a very short period of time in terms of its place and its lifetime as such. By the time we walk away, we will have been here for 12, 15 years as such. But the really important thing, the measure of success for us, is how does the community take ownership of the place? And I think to Steve's point around ensuring the public realm quality is maintained, that people are proud of where they live. And I think that sense of pride and sense of home and sense of grounding somewhere is so important these days, that being able to step away and know that we have created a place that people who either live here or who are local to the area are proud of, but really have that sense of ownership going forward in terms of what it means for them, their families, their community groups, how they use and properly engage with the spaces. I think is fundamentally where that success piece comes from. As I said, I'm not sure how easy that type of thing is to measure. Sometimes that's that feeling you get is success enough as such.
Thank you. So last question from my side, and then I can see there are many questions popping in. So Angela, based on your experience with Elephant Park, what are the key principles or best practices that other cities or projects should adopt when undertaking large-scale urban regeneration?
I think it comes back to the fundamental basics of really taking the time to understand and recognise the value, the complexity, the opportunity that both the existing place but the existing community present to you. And not being too arrogant to think that we have all the answers because we are the developer and we've done this before. because we might have built buildings before and we might have run consultations before, but we've not been in that community before. We, as I say, will be short-term custodians, and that should be seen as a privilege in terms of what our role is within there. So I think it's that taking that time to listen, taking that time to really understand, and really trying to recognise how to capitalise on the opportunities and the great things that exist about that community, because there's always going to be something. And genuinely being able to respond to that feedback and keep that community engaged in the long term is fundamental. And I think the other key thing is flexibility. You know, when we signed the regeneration agreement and started on this journey with Southwark Council, we obviously always knew that given it was so long dated, there'd be ups and downs in market cycles. But, you know, we didn't obviously think there'd be a war in Ukraine, a global pandemic, a prime minister who was in place for 42 days and threw everything out, Brexit, and we'd exit the EU. Like, just those alone, and who would have thought Donald Trump would get in for a second time and unleash hell from a trade war perspective? So all those kinds of things, there's always going to be various bits and pieces, but I think key for us is that flexibility and that ability to pivot and maintain momentum, because that, I think, for the broader community and people who are living and surrounded by long-term regeneration projects, there would be nothing worse when things start and then stop. And so that ability to be flexible, to pivot, to maintain momentum, to get to the end, but because at the end you have that neighbourhood, I think is one of those really key success factors, and one of the things that we've been fortunate to be able to achieve to get us to the point that we're at today.
So thank you both for sharing these valuable insights. It's been fascinating to hear about the journey of Elephant Park, the lessons learned, and the